As I nearly kill my crew members.
Both of you, well played.
Welcome.
Did not say that.
My wife did not say that. No, Biff was there though. But here we are tonight.
Someone's got to hold the mic. No,
someone's got to hold the camera. What are you talking about? Yes, folks. Hello. Welcome to another edition of the Spoiler Room. Oh, wait. My audio folks won't hear this, but I got to do this because
you're super cool.
Because yeah, if you got a collar, pop it up. Oh, Glenn. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was gonna. It doesn't work with the bathrobe, really.
No, it doesn't. Well, thank you everyone for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair with us, a full crew tonight, as we discuss a film I've been very excited for. And yes, I know it's my show. I could have probably talked about it whenever, but I wanted the right time. And tonight is the night. We are talking The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension. Yes, folks, there are films, and then there is this film, and I am very excited to talk about it tonight. And yes, I've got a wonderful group of crew members who have braved this and probably have to deal with my overexcitement over this film. First off, she is back with us once again. Say hello to the very talented Angelique Bone. Hello, Angelique. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, we're doing good tonight. We're doing good, and hopefully we don't get storms that knock things out. So, hoping for that. But I got it covered because my collar's up. So there you go.
I mean, I've got the hyper thruster in my purse. So.
Oh, the overthruster. Yeah, you got that overthruster in your purse. Is that what the ladies call it nowadays?
You know it.
It used to be called a massager, but anyway.
I'm thinking that there's a market for a product that I think we're coming up with right now.
Called the overthruster.
Yes, it's perfect.
Are you still in lockdown?
Yeah. You could even have little sub names for him, like Big Boutte. But
or the Peter Weller. No,
yes,
sorry,
the Peter Weller.
Well, we can name the perfect Tommy.
The perfect there you go. The perfect Tommy. Wow.
I'm starting to think this whole movie was just an inside dildo joke.
And the Penny Pretty, yeah. I mean, wow. Pecos. I mean, you could really, that's for those folks in Texas. Also with us, who is probably regretting suddenly being here, it is the BFD himself, Mr. Glenn Bittner. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
I didn't know there'd be dildo talk tonight.
That's the only reason I'm here.
Oh, that is, there you go. And of course, we have my right-hand man, the man who's been on a very long journey with me. He keeps coming back for more. We very much appreciate it. Hello, Mr. Ian Simmons. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. This will be a very interesting conversation.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling not everybody here enjoyed this movie, so this will be fun.
No, it's not so much. Well, I can't speak for anyone else, but I had an experience watching this the other night. The person who I don't think quite enjoyed the movie is not here with us, but she's married to me, so that kind of affected the way that I viewed it.
Don't watch this one with your significant other.
That's the takeaway from this episode.
That's the litmus test.
That's the litmus test. Tinder profile. If you make it on the first date, we'll watch Buckaroo Banzai. If you still are sitting there at the end of it, second date guaranteed.
Well, yeah, that question, that was like 17 years ago. I should have done that profile, but yeah, no. I have a feeling though, if I had put that on, it would have been a deal breaker. Oh wow,
probably would have been. So Angelique, since it's been a little while, would you please try to give the synopsis of The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the 8th dimension?
Okay, all right. Well, Buckaroo Banzai is a neurosurgeon astrophysicist, quantum physicist, and rock and roll samurai who has his group, oh gosh, I've forgotten it now, the Hong Kong
Cavaliers.
Thank you. I was about, yeah. And they're experimenting with some technology to break the dimensional barrier and go into the eighth dimension and unwittingly start an intergalactic war between two different species of aliens who hold the world hostage. Yeah. Yeah, that's I'm gonna leave it there.
Oh,
There's intrigue, there's lasers,
there's rock and roll.
rock and roll, there's Peter Weller in a fantastic suit.
There's only one.
There's Clancy Brown is in it. I mean, the cast list of Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. I mean, Clancy Brown. You've got Christopher Lloyd, Jeff Goldblum, Ellen Barkin, John Lithgow. I mean, and even the side characters, you're going to recognize many of those folks as well. I mean, Vincent Scavelli is in here as one of the Johns. Carl Lumbly in here is John Parker. I mean, there's just this list of talent in this wonderfully bizarre film that if you ever wanted the definition of going all in on something and committing to a gimmick, this is the film. So, Glad, we'll start with you. Buckaroo Banzai, remember when you first saw it, and what are your initial feelings with this film?
Oh, man. I remember seeing this at the Mark Theater out by me, which was the not quite second run theater. It was that spot before. It was still at the major theaters, but hadn't made it to the budgets yet. That was the Mark. That was the one we had. Cost me 99 cents. Yeah, it was a steal. I mean, this was also. Well, I mean, this is 30. How many years ago?
Yeah, well, it 84.
So not quite 30 years yet, but almost.
Yeah.
No. Not quite 40 years.
Not 40 years. Yeah, 37 in a row. Anyway.
Yeah. I remember going with a friend of mine, and we saw it, and we immediately went and watched it again.
Yes.
So
for that price,
of course, we're going to see it again.
I was going to say, for that price, it's cheaper than a video rental.
Yeah. So yeah, I remember watching it twice, and then I ran a Star Frontiers game based off of the movie.
Nice.
So yeah, I had such a kick out of this one, and probably still. Well, I know I still quote to this day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anytime someone says booty, I'd be like, booty. So, but I think you summed it up really well with the. I mean, they went all in. And they're just like, yep, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do it, and then we're going to release it to the public. Yes, we did it,
and they will summarily reject it.
Yeah, many people did reject it, and I'm still waiting on the sequel.
Yeah, me too.
The promised sequel.
We were promised a sequel. Damn it! And that would have been beautiful. Angelique, do you remember when you first saw this film and your feeling with it?
I was in college, and I was blown away because it's just right down my little weirdo alley.
Yeah, it's definitely got its own identity, that's for sure. Mr. Ian Simmons, what about you, sir?
Well, I saw this. I think probably the latest latecomer to this party. I saw it within the last 10 years because I wrote about it for Kicking the Seat. It's just one of those movies that, I think I was like 7 years old when it came out, so I had no point of reference. I would hear people talk about it, but I just never saw it out. And then finally, someone was like, "You should really watch this," and so I did, and I really dug it. Now, in fairness, there is a period that I talk about sometimes, and usually it's in a negative context, where for several years I was getting very little sleep, and the sleep I was getting was bad sleep, as opposed to now where I get very little sleep, but it's at least good sleep because I had sleep apnea, which I've since treated and cured. So there are a whole year's worth of movies that I've seen and some that I've reviewed that I have no memory of. Wow. And it affected the way that I watched the movie. So I'll watch something like, man, this is terrible. I'll go back like years later and watch them like, this is actually pretty good. I think I was just sleep deprived. With Buckaroo Banzai, I watched it for the second time last night or the night before with my wife, and I didn't remember most of it. And I think it was the fact that it was kind of indefensible to someone who I was like, oh, this is a time jumping space comedy adventure. That's how I sold it to her to watch it with me. And then I'm watching, I'm like, I'm not laughing. Neither is she. I can't understand half of what the characters are saying because they're saying it either like through rubber masks or like these really bizarre accents, or there's rock music playing. The story doesn't make sense. I made the mistake of watching like 5 minutes of the making of on the Blu-ray where the director was saying, yeah, the screenwriter was big into like serials, which was fine because that's what we wanted, kind of riffing off Indiana Jones. But he would send us 20 pages of story. We'd give him notes, and then he'd send back 20 pages of a completely different story. Not a revision, but it's a completely different story. And that was the screenwriting process for the entire movie. And watching it with that in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, this is like a crossover issue 475,000 of a series that's been going on for 80 years. It's fun, but I feel like I need to watch it another 5 times in order to wrap my head around it, which is to say, I was embarrassed to watch this the other night, but I'm going with my first impression, which is that it's great.
Hey, it's good to hear because, yes, I think it's great. I mean, everybody knows I have quirky tastes in films, and I love this. And part of the reason for me, the appeal is, one, the cast. They have so many big names, even for when it came out in 84. A lot of names are in this film. And it's another one of those, I'll put it in the category along with Flash Gordon from 1980, that it was a little bit ahead of its time of what they were trying to do versus the time it came out. Because now comic book movies are fucking we got series, we've got it's the genre. And I was just trying to think, man, what if like Flash Gordon, even this film, what if it came out today? I could definitely see this becoming more of a series like on Netflix or something, being a quirky Amazon flicks that picks up a huge following because all those elements are there. Big names, budget. There is a budget to this. I mean, the special effects, in all honesty, for the type of film it is, aren't bad at all. Huh?
James Gunn should do a Buckaroo Banzai series.
Oh my God.
Either him or Taika Waititi.
Oh
yes.
Oh, either one of them would be wonderful because I mean, yeah, folks, we I mean, you know what you're into, even if you'd never read the comic that this was based off the comic, right? That came out, or did this come out first and then the comic, Glenn?
I think they did a tie-in, right? This wasn't a pre-existing thing, was it?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. I wasn't quite sure. I did know they did a comic like soon after. And what's funny,
you're making me remember things from 38 years ago.
I'm sorry. Sorry. There is a connection though between this film and Liza Minnelli, Robert De Niro, New York, in that the writer wrote both films. So he only wrote 4 movies. Talent. Yeah, he only wrote 4 movies. Buckaroo Banzai was his second last film. Go figure. And it is directed as well by the director who wrote the original Slither. He wrote the screenplay for The Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1978, and he directed this. He only directed 2 films, W.D. Richter. But you could see that kind of spirit from like Slither and Invasion Body Snatchers 1978 in here. But I mean, the film opens with the crawl, and you get the Buckaroo Banzai is a world famous brain surgeon, astrophysicist, rock and roll samurai. Though we never get to see his samurai skills, I was highly disappointed.
I think that was the Chekhov's gun sort of thing. We see it in his trailer, but that was probably for like movie number 2 when he takes on the crime syndicate.
Right. I would have figured they'd show up in the crime syndicate because he does meditate. He does at one point. He's wearing samurai garb, and in fact, when he does his speed car test, he puts on the bandana a la Karate Kid. Go ahead.
I was going to say the weird thing is I forgot that this came out in '84. So when I was watching it for the second time, I was like, "There's an awful lot of Back to the Future in this movie." There's Christopher Lloyd. There's the car going, incredible speeds in order to like essentially disappear and reappear. And then there's a little flux capacitor thing in the triangle. I'm like, man, Zemeckis must have been pissed. I'm thinking, no, W.D. Richter must have been pissed when a year after this thing came and went, you've got this cultural phenomenon called Back to the Future, which is like the same movie.
Well, there's actually a lot of influences in here. Wouldn't you say, Angelique, if you watch this film and you watch sci-fi films that came out after, I'm like sitting there going, man, people have borrowed from this film quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Between the ragtag group of amazingly skilled paramilitary special forces scientists and the technology, I mean, and even the creatures and the dimensional ships and everything, I like to do world melding. Like in my mind, Breaking Bad is a continuation of Malcolm in the Middle. Hal got tired of Lois and the family, burned down the house, moved out to West, and started a new life as Walter White. Became the teacher, got the cancer and all that. So with this, I'm like, okay, so Doc Brown is actually an alien who's trying to redo the technology. So yeah,
with a DeLorean, exactly,
right.
yeah, and well, we all know what happens to Buckaroo Banzai. He ends up joining law enforcement and going to New Detroit, but he gets all damaged up and ends up becoming a cybernetic law enforcement officer.
Right.
Yeah.
Poor bastard.
Yeah, he tries to save the world and gets his parts handed to him.
Biff, what about you? Do you see a lot of influence? Do you see this film influencing a lot of sci-fi stuff we got after this? Even though the movie itself wasn't that huge.
Sure.
Like,
I mean, think of when it came out, and then think of. I mean, I could easily see as I mentioned, like, a series of this done by like a James Gunn. I mean, I would put money on the fact that James Gunn likes this movie. Because it's and when you mentioned, like, when you first said like the influence of that's one of the first things I thought of was like who said like the his little group of this ragtag band, and I'm like Guardians of the Galaxy, and like every ragtag band that you've seen where it's the like, how do these people get together? Like, you just happen to have these people. It's like he's a scientist and a martial artist type of stuff. I mean, that's what this led to, is those kind of multi-purpose people that that was I suppose kind of in a way this is almost like I can see kind of being like a riff on like a 007 type character of the whole. It's because there you have international like James Bond is like the playboy and the super spy and all that, and then you have what if he was also a rock star and a brain surgeon?
Well, the one thing that occurred to me this time was, aside from the comic book and the hit record albums, Buckaroo Banzai is essentially Elon Musk. I mean, he's a multi-billionaire. He's an international superstar who appears in all this media. He is doing all sorts of crazy stuff, like sending things to space and trying to create, technology that will allow monkeys to like move things with their minds. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the feeling I kind of got too. Was I'm glad you mentioned Elon Musk, because I'm trying to put my finger on it, going, wow, who does he seem similar to? you know.
But I could solve world hunger, or I could make telepathic monkeys. Sorry, telekinetic monkeys.
Telekinetic monkeys, hands down, every time.
Yeah. Right?
Well, the telekinetic monkeys can move the food to where it needs to go.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Because combine that with the Amazon drones, we're gonna have flying monkeys. It'll just be just like Oz.
The drones.
I don't trust monkeys since I saw one with a razor blade in a movie. So
that's true. That's true. There is that. Speaking of monkeys, I love how the aliens call I use the quote. Glenn mentions it. I adore this film. I've watched it many times. I quote it often. Every so often I'll go, hey, monkey boy, you stupid monkey boy. Someone will cut me off or something. I'll just say, you stupid monkey boy.
just be careful where you say that, Mark.
Be very careful with that.
Well, yes. No, in my car, and I'm in the central Wisconsin. Okay, but let's put it that way. It's a little bit safer.
Whoa. I'm just going to back slowly out of the room.
No, I've quoted a lot of things from this film because it had that impression on me, because I hadn't watched anything like it before. And I mean, the influences, another one that pops to mind with the story is Men in Black comes to mind with this, as far as you've got two alien races who are actually very similar. They refer to themselves different. They look just a little different, but pretty much the same. The most that that there's a difference is that they refer to themselves, and in fact, one is just basically a spin-off faction of their society. But you get the war. Earth is basically just caught in the middle of an interplanetary war between species, just like kind of in Men in Black, and it was flashing back to that. Including the big ship orbiting Earth, threatening to cause the destruction of Earth. I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah, then Lithgow's Lizardo character was essentially an alien trapped in a human's body, just kind of trying to figure out how he could get back home and assume power. There's They Live. I mean, the whole thing with the Buckaroo Banzai gets the electrical shock, and then all of a sudden he can see everybody and see the alien creatures for what they are. Yeah, and that's what's funny about movies like this is I always wonder, is it that these things are based on older stories that I just don't know about, like short stories where there's sunglasses that you can see, aliens walking around, or is it that John Carpenter watched Buckaroo Banzai and he's like, that would make an awesome political allegory. I'm going to call it They Live.
Well, I mean, aliens.
I'm pretty sure that They Live was the original one was written by Shakespeare. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, they liveth. Yes,
they liveth.
Yes.
Verily, place these spectacles upon thine visage. Thou shalt see.
I haveth doth arrive to acquire some chewing.
Hark! An unpleasant feature.
Hark, unpleasant creature! I have come here to consume chewable consumables and dispense justice through my boot and your rear, and thus I am out of the chewable.
I am out of cud.
Well, Buckaroo Banzai is not Shakespeare, but the dialogue and this script and everything what I love about it is the world building they do with this film. I mean, there's films that try to do fantasy worlds and that and everything, but when we say they go all in, they go all in. Buckaroo Banzai is a known name. He's got a big ass bus. He's got a group of guys around him, as we mentioned before, which is a little different. They're all very talented and equal in their own way, which is a bit different than what you might expect when you have the title character and he's got his, his hanger-ons or his buddies, but they all got their specialties, but no one's near the level of him. But I mean, we have that scene where he's literally with Jeff Goldblum, delivering his lines in the most Jeff Goldblum way of Jeff Goldblum. And they're doing brain surgery and they're bantering back and forth on kind of an equal level of sorts. And you're like, wait. And then he asks them to join his group. And then you get the group and you're like, oh, you look at these guys, they got their guns and that. They look kind of like, just his security detail and that. But then they're talking scientific terms and that, using the equipment and shit, just like Bucker. It's like, wow. I mean, I found this kind of refreshing. I mean, Biff, what do you think? I mean, it's a little different for your group dynamic for, when you have a title character like Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I personally believe that the writer was Rauch, or how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking he was watching MTV one day and said, man, what if Adamant had his own movie?
Oh, thanks. Now I will never not see Buckaroo. He does look like Adamant.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And I'm just thinking, I'm just like, it's and then he got super high on, probably some heroin-laced, pot in the 80s, and then wrote this script. And then said, what this needs is John Lithgow and Jeff Goldblum and
not just
checks out,
John
yeah.
Lithgow, a sweaty
that chick from Eddie and the Cruisers. She could play someone's twin sister.
What were you going to say, Angelique?
And not just John Lithgow, but a sweaty-toothed, grungy, awful John Lithgow.
Doing a bad Italian accent. Yeah.
I thought he was Russian.
I thought he was supposed to be Russian too, but
it kind of changes. Yeah.
Well, and you don't actually see him for a lot of the film either. You get to see him in the beginning a bit, in the asylum. We'll say the asylum, where Angelique, we could go along and combine your universe, because the guard who gets killed was actually for a while a minion for a radio, a TV station guy who, at one point, I guess he retired and became an asylum guy. The guard that gets killed, I think he was in UHF, if I remember correctly.
He was also in Breaking Bad.
And he was also in Breaking Bad. There you go. all roads lead to Buckaroo Banzai, man. Really, though, well, and one of the things that this film does well, I think, is the world building. Like I said, they commit to it, so you can immediately buy into that this group of individuals live within this world and they're accepted. I mean, not only does he have those folks, Angelique, but he's got the Blue Blazers, who are civilians who are part of his fan club that also help him take out bad guys.
Yeah, and he's got a direct line to the president. I mean, Buckaroo Banzai goes all the way to the top.
And has no problems enlisting children in warfare, apparently.
Yeah, you gotta love the child soldiers, yeah.
Just more parallels to Adamant.
I mean, if the kid's any good, I mean, why waste talent?
He knows how it, because later on, when they get to the big thing of going to the big factory where the ship is being built, because the story is, folks, that Buckaroo, because we're all over the place, kind of like the movie, but Buckaroo Banzai successfully does his experiment of crossing the 8th dimension. As we mentioned, the interstellar war. Well, he ended up showing that there is a way for these refugee aliens have been on our planet, the bad guys, since War of the Worlds, because we have a link to War of the Worlds as well, to where, the broadcast that Orson Welles initially said the aliens were coming and then said, no, it's a radio broadcast. It turns out aliens did actually arrive, and they brainwashed him into saying it was a radio broadcast.
Orson Welles being zapped in the brain by aliens explains a lot about later years.
It does. It really does, actually. So you can buy it. You can definitely buy into this theory.
Okay.
I'm playing a big planet-eating robot. What? Just read the lines, Orson. Just read the lines. Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing, the connections they make, and you've got this group of people who've been there that long. They connected to War of the Worlds. They've got this big factory. They figure they'll steal the overthruster so they can make it across the 8th dimension to rescue the rest of the soldiers that have been banished there, and then go back to their alien planet, Planet 10, which I love. Instead of Planet 9, it's Planet 10. Planet 10. And they're going to take it over, and so you get the big showdown. And one of the Blue Blazers is a kid with a machine gun who shows he can actually fire it.
His dad's a helicopter pilot.
The whole movie.
What?
He has one of the best lines in the whole movie. Freezer, I'll drink your blood. I mean,
yeah. Regardless of what enhancements the writer may have had in his brain at the time of writing this, there are some wonderful, memorable quotes, including one that I definitely use a lot. Is good old, at one point, our rockers. Okay, so Buckaroo Banzai, in a day, this is his day, he does the brain surgery, helicopters out to an experimental site, drives his fast car, breaks through the 8th dimension. Then he goes and rocks out at a concert where he meets a girl who ends up, he figures, being the twin of his ex-wife, who he still loves. Go figure. But at one point, he's telling, he opens a concert with, remember, wherever you go,
there you are.
There you are. I have quoted that so many times. And just go ahead.
I measure the character of a person if they can answer the question when I say, why is there a watermelon there? they can come up with the right answer. I'll be friends with that person until the day I die.
Yeah, because Buckaroo's got a compound too, right, Ian?
Oh yeah,
yeah, he does. What's one of the interesting things about this movie is a lot of these films that we've seen in later years, they'll go with a conventional technique. We've seen it in Men in Black, where you'll have the character who is outside that represents the audience that gets taken into this world. They're like the wide-eyed, like, oh my God, I can't believe there's this whole secret society of alien hunters, that's like Will Smith. In this movie, it's kind of Jeff Goldblum and it's kind of Ellen Barkin, but they both, that quality of those characters kind of gets absorbed into the wackiness. Because Jeff Goldblum is, he's just a neurosurgeon working alongside Buckaroo Banzai, and he gets invited to the team. It's like, can you sing? It's like, I guess, kind of. But pretty soon he's just like walking around wearing, a cowboy outfit and fighting space aliens or interdimensional aliens. That part kind of gets dropped off because we're following like 3 or 4 other different plot points in the movie. And Ellen Barkin's character, Penny Pretty, I think she's honestly the weakest link in this movie. And I think Buckaroo Banzai would have been better off if she were not in the film, because she suffers the most from the disjointed storytelling. She's in one scene getting bailed out of jail after having almost blown her brains out in the club. The next scene, she's sitting on the dais in a press conference where they're unveiling this program to the world, and she's answering like she's talking like one of the rest of his co-scientist cabals, like giving good answers to questions like what the fuck is going on here. And not honestly, not in a good way. Did I miss 6 scenes between the one that I just saw kind of a way?
You did. They just never filmed them. They were on pages that they just left out because.
Well, that was the 80s montage scene that would have been there. That would have shown her like getting training and all that stuff.
I would have loved to have seen that. But the thing is, like, it's an interesting idea that she might have been the twin sister. But then I'm like, since they don't address it, my logic brain kicks into overdrive. I'm like, okay, so did his ex-wife or girlfriend never mention that she had a twin sister? Does Ellen Barkin's character have amnesia? Did she not know that her sister was married to frickin' Buckaroo Banzai?
Nope.
Whatever was going on here.
You're missing those key elements during that pivotal, very emotional jail scene that you had, where she mentioned that she was adopted. So she was adopted at a very young age. So the sisters didn't know each other existed because she was adopted, I believe, as a baby. So therefore, they got separated, and she didn't know that she had a twin sister either.
So how did he figure this out?
Because she looks
Buckaroo
like
Banzai.
Yeah, and he's Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah. Again, like that's stuff that if you're gonna put into a movie and spend that much time with these characters, I need a bit more than that randomness.
I think what it was when he was meditating in the trailer van, he had his wife's picture next to him, and there's probably some deleted scene about him, going up to whatever meditative space and uncovering the truth and connecting the dots. And
well, no, in the jail scene, she mentions where she's from, which he doesn't explain. You miss that dialogue. It's expecting you kind of to be with Buckaroo as he puts it together in his head. She comes from the same area his wife did. So he doesn't say it, but and then she talks about how she was adopted. And that's when he's like, of course, a twin sister. And everybody goes, of course, whatever. Because I'm rolling with it by this point. Buckaroo could say anything. I'll just be like, he knows. He's freaking brain surgeon, astrophysicist, rock and roller. Whatever he tells me and conclusion he comes to, I'm fine with.
Well, but I think the issue I've got is that if that's an interesting idea, and I think that deserves to be explored in a story somewhere, but her character ends up being the kind of cliche damsel in distress, she's got legs that go on for miles and we're just going to showcase them while she's in peril. There's nothing really much to her character except being, kind of crazy, kind of, cryy, kind of needy and needing to be, pulled out of jams, which, we had a lot in that era, but watching it now, I'm like, again, just either do something with it or cut it all out.
What do you say, Biff? Should they just have cut maybe her character out? I mean, he's got plenty of other characters to be in peril, right? I mean,
it was wow. There's a lot of cock in this movie. We need a woman. That's what it was, I think, and they just threw her in there, and because they're like, this is a sausage fest. We need a woman. Well, what you gonna do? I don't know.
I honestly, thinking about the whole James Gunn idea, which I think is an awesome one. They could do like a Walking Dead style thing where they just have a TV show that goes on for decades of just like the ongoing crazy adventures. But I think in a modern context, there would have been a woman or 2 or 3 as part of his inner circle, as one of the Cavaliers. And if there was a love interest, there would have been more, dimension to her. I think I like Ellen Barkin as an actress, so it's just kind of like weird to see her in this part where it's like, and it's kind of early in her career, but like,
they do have another character that is part of his, as you mentioned, cabal or whatnot, but she's not portrayed as being as far as like another astrophysicist or nothing. There is the Mrs. Johnson character who shows up.
Oh yeah, she's the one that tells Ellen Barkin, you can't go in there. That's where the boys hang out.
Right. That's great. But she shows up later and taking the message from the aliens to the president to show the president that Buckaroo Banzai isn't crazy and there are actual aliens that want to blow up the Earth.
You're right. She was a very important secretary in that role.
She was. I mean, she is a secretary. I'm just saying there's a character that they could have probably had as easily be the lady in distress character versus having Ellen Barkin's character in there. Angelique, do you think they just kind of put Ellen's character in there because it is a sausage fest?
Well, I mean, every good comic needs a set of boobs.
In this case, legs, but yeah.
Yeah. And now, I'm trying to think. Is there supposed to be another like musical scene in this movie, or am I thinking of another movie?
No, there was only the one scene where he sings a cover, where it is actually Peter Weller singing too, I believe.
Okay, because I must be confusing this wackadoo movie with another completely wackadoo movie where I thought there was a band, a female band who sang one of the waitresses' songs.
Oh.
And then Buckaroo Banzai comes on.
I don't think, unless it was in a deleted scene, maybe. I don't think so. All the version I've seen, no, it basically opens with collars up, guitars ready, and the audience cheering as they come on stage right after he's broken the 8th dimension. So...
I don't know what I'm using this with. I mean, of course, it could be a fever dream. I don't know.
It could be, I'd be open to seeing that, or an equally equivalent rock and roll brain surgeon.
You're probably thinking because Clancy Brown, who was in Highlander series, and then you jump from there to the Highlander TV series, which Joan Jett was in. You're probably just thinking of Joan Jett. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
No, this is
Joan Jett was in the Highlander TV show?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. No,
I got to go watch the Highlander TV show.
It's a complete scene, and they sing "Johnny, Are You Queer?"
Oh. No, I as far as I know, that's never been
I'll have to hunt around on IMDb or something, because I know there's a movie where it's some weird twisted plot, and to my thinking, it added more to Penny's backstory, and that's why she was sad and crying and wanted to kill herself, because like Battle of the Band. I don't know. Maybe I'm hallucinating.
No, it might have been in a deleted scene. It's hard to say. I will say though that there was supposed to be a scene with, I do remember now, I think it's on YouTube. There is supposed to be a scene where it's Buckaroo Banzai as a kid, and he's got a mom and dad, and one of the characters, the mom, is played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah, yep. Jamie Lee Curtis played his mom, but it is in a deleted scene. I have seen it on YouTube for a while. I don't know if it's still up there, but it blew me away because it shows him as a kid. It was an alternate opening rather than the opening the way they have it, with the scroll, and then him doing brain surgery basically, and them preparing the car and all that. It was actually like a home footage of Buckaroo as a young kid, like showing his smarts and everything with very intelligent parents.
Was that after his mom had survived that encounter with the serial killer, and then she had to like move several towns away and change her name from Laurie Strode? I'm just trying to go with this whole United Universe theory.
I'm all for it. I mean, we're connecting all kinds of things in here.
And Angelique, you might, I don't know, maybe you might be thinking of Valley Girl.
I might
for that song "Johnny, Are You Queer?"
Oh yeah,
because Josie Cotton sings that song in Valley Girl.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
So
yeah, see, I'm getting two wackadoo movies all tangled up.
So pulling up a little bit of, I'm sure this is a very informative episode for folks. This is pulling up. There's a lot of trivia for it, including apparently that the end sequence. Again, we're jumping around, but this wonderful end sequence where we get a cast walk and they're walking to the beat with the wonderful Buckaroo Banzai soundtrack. And you may be wondering, well, how did they get them all to the beat? Did they record the track or whatnot? Apparently, he told the entire cast during the credit sequence march to think of Uptown Girl. That's what the composer said. And it's the beat. If you look at it, it's Uptown Girl beat that they're marching to.
Wow.
And then he did the Buckaroo Banzai theme later. Do, 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 do. I love that theme.
And to answer an earlier question, Lithgow's accent is Italian.
Yeah.
Because he recorded a tailor on the 20th Century Fox lot and then had the tailor read the lines because the tailor had a thick Italian accent. And that's what he based his accent off of.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I looked that up. I didn't just know that.
That's because Lithgow rocks. So, and to your point, Ian, you're spot on, and Glenn, you're spot on as well. Peter Weller stated that he drew inspiration from Elia Kazan, Adam Ant, and Jacques Yves Cousteau, and combined them to help make his persona Buckaroo Banzai.
All right.
So there you go. So much trivia for this. In the film, a comic based on Buckaroo Banzai is shown in reality. Marvel did, in fact. Oh, it's a Marvel. It's a Marvel film. Fuck another Thor movie. I want Buckaroo Banzai in the MCU.
And then, and you can have a crossover. James Gunn doing Galaxy Buckaroo Banzai crossover.
Oh my God.
Well, because Jeff Goldblum played the cosmic guy in Guardians 2, right? So what if that is New Jersey? Just one too many times through the dimension machine. He just became part of the universe.
Or we could stick with the theme, and that could be Jersey's unknown twin brother.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because Jersey was adopted
from another planet. That's why he's so smart. Look at this. We're just connecting all the dots, folks, to this film.
Now we've got to shoehorn Nick Cage in here, and it'll be perfect.
Somehow we got to work Nick Cage.
Well, Nick Cage was a ghostwriter for 2 quote-unquote movies.
There you go.
Now, I don't want Nick Cage then. I want Nick Cage now.
Oh,
like Mandy, Willis Wonderland, Nick Cage.
Crazy Cage. You want severe Crazy Cage, like
Dad Bod Cage.
Dad Bod Cage.
Everybody joins the MCU eventually. I mean, hell, the reason he's called Nicolas Cage is because of a damn Marvel Comics character. So
yeah, that's true.
It's only a matter of time.
Everything belongs to the McU. But back to the Buckaroo Banzai. Yeah, I mean, we've got our aliens who I thought it was interesting that one group of the aliens are Rastafarian. Angelique, what'd you think with our aliens? The bad guys camouflage themselves as sick white guys, and the
middle-aged white men.
Middle-aged white men, and the good aliens show themselves as Rastafarians. What'd you think of our aliens?
Well, it was an imaginative concept as far as the disguises went. I loved that they're all named John whatever. Mm-hmm. John Big Boutte, John Smallberries. You know? I'm like the most generic name on the planet combined with the random object.
Yeah.
John Rocking Chair. You know?
John Walker,
John Walker.
Yeah.
But it just, it was kind of, it was interesting, and I liked the the hologram communication thing. You know, the Queen alien looked like the future folks from Bill and Ted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they even had the glitter a bit going on with them too.
Yeah, I liked that.
And I like the design of their ships and the biotech. It was rather Cronenberg-esque in a lot of ways.
It was a little goofy there towards the end with the insulating liquid. That was gross.
that was rather gross. I love Peter. I love Buckaroo Banzai's reaction to that. Well, what is that?
What's that? Oh, it's insulating liquid.
It's like one of the only times
he didn't even respond. He just looked at him like, "What?"
Yeah, because it's like one of the only times Buckaroo actually like loses his cool. Because even when he's getting tortured by our Italian mad scientist, he's still playing it cool. Like, I'm not telling you anything, and he's sweating it. He's getting genitals electrocuted and everything. He's fine. No, he's in an alien ship, and this cloudy liquid starts pouring out. He's like, what is that? What is it, Beth?
The sad trivia I just learned is the original director of photography of this film was Jordan Cronenweth, who did Blade Runner.
Wow.
He was hired specifically because of his ability to for his rich color and texture.
Right.
And the producer replaced him.
Oh.
Against the wishes of pretty much the entire crew and the director. Because he wanted it to look more campy.
Wow.
So the nightclub scene with the famous wherever you go, there you are line, that's one of the only scenes that remains that was shot by Cronenweth.
Wow.
Which, if you look at the way it's shot, the way you mentioned it now, I could see it. I can totally see that, the way that scene is shot.
I'm just now my mind is thinking what it would look like.
Oh
if
man,
they kept him on for the whole feature.
Is he still alive?
That would have been mind blowing the way they would have shot that. That would have been interesting. I mean, I don't mind the camp. I think the camp is fitting. Technically wise, no.
No, I was going to say, because James Gunn could just call him up. How about a redo?
He died 25 years ago.
Ooh.
Oh, so it's really out of the question.
Yeah. Not yet.
61.
Yeah, not yet. Anyway, we don't have that technology yet, and then they can,
Or do we?
Or do we? But I love the bioorganic technology they had for these aliens. I mean, their ships. None of the two ships we get to see. There's only one that's symmetrical, and that's the one, the flight pod with the wings that gets shot down by the rednecks. Otherwise, the other two ships that we see are not symmetrical at all, and they're not streamlined like we're used to seeing ships. I mean, the one looks like a old tree log. So I loved that. I loved how they're on these huge chairs for their control panels too. And yeah, I mean, it not only that, but technically, and I want to get everybody's just quick opinion. Is it just me? I think this is one of the only films to where they have multiple voices on a radio or over the announcement speaker that's describing things that actually has impact of what is going on screen. For instance, Buckaroo Banzai's at the speeding car, and the guys on the radio are explaining there's vibration on your car. And it's not, the audio isn't very upfront. It's just as if it's just on the radio off to the side that he's not paying much attention to. But it says there's impact stuff on your glass. He goes over to the glass and looks. There's a vibration under your car. He goes under the car, finds the parasite thing. And I'm like, okay. But later on as well, when they're in the big warehouse, there's announcements over the speaker. And if you listen to the announcements, they pertain to what's going on. I mean... Does that help with the world building? Because it actually applies to what's going on.
I think it can. I picked up on the test test run stuff, but not so much what you're talking about at the end. Yeah. But it probably just blended so well into the texture of the movie that I just was like, oh, that's cool. My brain wasn't thinking about that.
I've watched this 20 times. So.
That'll do it.
They needed it, I think, because the red electron monsters or whatever they're called, I think they were just all inherently stupid, except for Big Boutte and John Lithgow's character. So they had to be told, don't let him get shot. get on board the ship now. We're about to leave, you know. So I don't think it was like any kind of a driving force. It was just a, kind of a queen bee worker bee situation.
Dr. Lizardo looking like a lizard. Oh. Glenn, what about you with the announcements? Did you notice that at all? Did that help kind of with the world, or am I just the only one that noticed because I watched it so many times?
Yeah, you're weird.
It works, okay? It's there.
Well, one thing I will say, Mark, you mentioned the kind of the biomechanoid quality of these of this technology. There's H.R. Giger. I don't know if he was an influence, but there was that sort of like the biomechanical influence. But I'm thinking about another movie that might have stolen from this one is Galaxy Quest, because the giant aliens and that with the kind of like the weird lobster claw looking tentacles coming out, they also had these crazy looking spaceships that looked sort of like the craft that we see that the hunters were shooting at earlier in this movie. I wonder how much the people who made this movie could have sued future filmmakers. I wonder if there's like a statute of limitations or something, or if they could just have plausible deniability.
It probably is plausible deniability because it's changed just enough so you can't claim it. But
but there's like a video essay waiting to be done here of like the influences in modern sci-fi coming from the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
It's hard to miss. I'm glad you guys have brought it up because I thought I was the only one that noticed that you watch it now, especially watching it for today's show. I watched it just a little bit more than just, I love this movie too, being a little bit of a critical eye and noticing a lot of these things to where I'm like, wow, like the computers too, where they hack Yoyodyne, which, Yoyodyne systems, which, yes, this is before Cyberdyne systems. This is Yoyodyne, so this was like the precursor to Cyberdyne. They're hacking it. They're talking about ciphers, and they've got like the red monitor and that. But ciphers are used for hacking, and that that's where they found the list of John's, and I just loved that element in there. But again, more hacking type stuff. It's like I just love all the influences this movie seems to have spawned. And maybe like you said, I think you said it could be because it borrowed from previous factors that have just been there in sci-fi forever, and it's just the flamboyancy of this film brings it to the forefront to where it's not being subtle at all. You've got Buckaroo Banzai that the world knows, and they don't just know him, they know his band, because like in the jail cell that we talked about before, Perfect, one of the girls in the cell recognize him. And where they go, there's the Buckaroo Banzai comic book, and the one redneck goes, "Oh, it's the latest edition." It's like, there's very few films I've seen that have taken a character and just made them this known global entity.
Well, it's almost like what you might expect from, like, if you panned out from like the Avengers. We kind of get that in some of the Marvel TV shows now, like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where you see that Sam Wilson has a life beyond being the Falcon. People recognize him and stuff in the street. This is like that to the nth degree, where it's the fact that he's out there saving the world is sort of incidental to the rest of the story. There's a lot of street level stuff kind of going on here.
There is, and I'm not saying that it's not being done now, but especially when this came out, I think part of the impact was just the fact of they did go all in. They put this whole world together with a rather large budget. You're just like sitting there going, wow, you're immersed in it, and here you've got this larger than life character that is not he's a superhero, but he's not. This is one of those, like you said, a James Bond type character, to where he does superhero things, but he doesn't have special powers. Outside of getting shocked and being able to do the they live thing with seeing people, but he doesn't really have special powers. But Glenn, would you consider him a superhero?
I mean, in the same regard as I consider, Tony Stark a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, he's more of a superhero than Green Arrow. What do? I'm rich and I can shoot an arrow.
No, I've never heard of Oliver. He sounds like a really cool guy.
Why do you sound like Batman right now? I don't sound like Batman. What are you talking about? No, yeah, I mean, but it's just, again, it's a superhero comic book film that came out before they were cool, because all we got and what a lot of expectation was Superman. As far as your comic book based type style, and this was original that eventually spawned a comic book, but this was original content. But it's basically a comic book movie that, like I said, I think would fit better in today. Maybe cut back some of the camp, but it would fit in better today, I think, than it did when it came out. And it may have, when you say it's ahead of its time, I'm not saying it's an intelligent movie by any means, but I'm saying what they do in this film, I think, was ahead of its time, and audiences weren't ready for this type of world and immersive and just wild stuff. Much like our 80s Flash, 1980, Flash Gordon. I don't think you had an audience that was used to seeing stuff like that. They were used to seeing Christopher Reeves. And that's it. But he was in the world on Earth with humans, and everything was familiar. And Metropolis, aka whatever, New York, whatever, it's all familiar stuff. And in here, yeah, you kind of have familiar things, but there's a lot of stuff that's just out there. So, would you say, Angelique, that this film was kind of ahead of its time as far as the concept coming out at that time versus your movie-going audience?
Oh, completely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And even still, I think it's still a little ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Concept-wise.
Right.
It could do. I think I agree with you in that it would do very well as a show, because that would give us time to explore all of these different stories that are popping up that you get just a bite of. Because it's like you say, it's like you're coming into the middle. You're looking at you've got issue 15.
Yeah.
You don't know any of the backstory, but this is still pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to know what happened earlier.
Right. Well, and your cast of characters, each character is unique. It's not like he's got a bunch of guys who are the same. Each one of these guys got their own name, their own look, their own ability, their little more expertise. There's a lot of story there for everybody. The relationship of how did he recruit those guys? We know how he recruited, Jeff Goldblum in Furry Chaps, but we don't know how he recruited anybody else. You're right. There is a lot of story. Glenn, what about you? A little bit of ahead of its time as far as concept?
I don't know if I'd say it's ahead of its time. I mean, there's plenty of camp that existed.
Sure.
And the fact that, like, if you look at, like, as you said, who Weller drew inspiration from, it's not like he created something brand new. He was pulling from things that already existed. So I don't think I would say it's ahead of its time. I would say that it just was not what the general public. And I mean, if you had it today, it would be a completely different movie. It would be made to be, I think, more along the lines of like a Thor Ragnarok or a Guardians of the Galaxy, where there's a little bit of camp, but it's not full on camp.
Right.
So, I've watched so many movies in the 80s that I got at the video store, and there's tons of movies that are campy like this. True. That were just made on shoestring budgets and weren't made by big theaters or big studios. So, it was a gamble, is what it was. It was a gamble with with the budget and then the cast. And this was obviously this is kind of wacky and out there, but hopefully we have enough big names for people to be like, yeah, all these people are in it. It's got to be good, right? Right, and it's got to be good. I mean, a movie with John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase. That's got to be a good movie, right? No, it's nothing but trouble.
I knew you were going there, and I'm glad you did.
So it's sometimes I think they took a shot and it bankrupted the studio.
Yeah.
So because I mean they did have plans to do a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
That was the real name of the sequel they were going to do. Versus the
World Crime League or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was the plan, but the movie bombed so badly the studio went bust.
And bomb it did because it grossed $6 million worldwide.
What was the budget? Do you know?
I'm not sure on the budget of that. I'd have to. I didn't have that.
And Gene Siskel predicted that it would become a cult movie.
Oh, did he really?
But before it was even released, he said that this will become a cult classic.
Wow. He was prophetic in that because it is. I mean, it's got a following. You can see why. I mean, there's no. So its budget was around $12 million, and it made $6 worldwide. Opening weekend was $600,000.
Oh,
ow! I just ow. Whew. Yeah,
but with those 99-cent tickets, that means like 600,000 people saw the movie opening weekend. That's all right.
I didn't see it opening weekend.
Oh well,
I saw it. I saw it by like week 4 or 5.
Well,
and you saw it twice, so that contributes to the $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, my friend and I, we're $4 of that.
I think I was about $5 or $8 of that too. I think my parents took me a couple times to go see it. It was in its fairness, it looks like it was only doing a limited release, and maybe it got such critically panned that they decided not to do. It says limited. I'm trying to find the wide release of it. Oh yeah, there it is, August 15th. So it did get the wide release on August 15th. That same month, Red Dawn came out. Sheena, Chud, The Woman in Red. Oh, it went up against Tightrope, and Philadelphia Experiment was out at that time. So this is really an odd film to be within that group of other movies. So, yeah. Buckaroo Banzai, folks. I will wrap it up here tonight. It's odd, it's quirky. I love it if you like odd and quirky films, and I can totally see why it has this cult following, and I'm glad it does. Because there's a lot of films that have come out that are more popular, bigger budget, and successful that nobody talks about, but this film always seems to get a reaction out of folks when you mention it. Good, bad, or ugly, they know it, and like tonight, people still talk about it. So yeah, I would recommend it to folks, and we'll go around the room here, get your guys' final thoughts with Buckaroo Banzai, and if you would recommend it. So Angelique, would you recommend this film, and your final thought with Buckaroo?
Yeah, I totally recommend it. And I mean, my final thought can just be summed up by the quote, hey, wherever you go, there you are. And this movie's going to take you places.
Definitely going to do that. Glenn, what about you, sir?
Oh, man. I mean, I still get a kick out of this one. And I mean, I've probably seen it, I don't know, a dozen or more times.
Mm-hmm.
I still quote it. I mean, there's obscure quotes that will still pop into my head every now and again. Like, I mean, so like, pictures don't lie. You're talking about, I met my first wife through a picture. Like, you know, and something I don't remember the exact line, but yeah. So the fact that I still remember that, you know, how many years later, and I probably haven't seen this for, it's probably been close to 10 years since I last watched it. Up until I rewatched it whenever you first announced this, we were doing this, so a month or so ago. So, and yeah, I mean, it all came flooding back.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, the torture scene with Lithgow and Peter Weller, and then reading trivia that Peter Weller, they did numerous takes because he kept cracking up because it was the first time he had heard Lithgow's, as he called it, his Italian Martian accent. So
hard to act like you're in pain and torture when you're also laughing because well, Lithgow is just that type of actor, though. I mean, yeah, he throws himself all into the part, and he definitely does that here for sure with this movie. And I can see that. Well, apparently another one too. Lithgow had his own crack up moment because he was so impressed with Christopher Lloyd's improvisation, their pre-flight launch scene. He can actually see him laughing as he's putting on his helmet because Christopher Lloyd is just nailing that. I guess that was improv of him doing with the finger and everything and the big bootay and all of that. Apparently that got Lithgow laughing. So, I mean, and that's the thing. You can tell people are having fun on this film, though. I mean, these are big named actors at the time doing a film that you wouldn't have thought them doing, and they're having fun. You can tell people are having fun in this movie that are making it, regardless of how often they're writing scripts with different stories. The actors either keep it professional and just realize what they're making and just have, you know, let loose with it. I mean, Ian, what are your final thought with Buckaroo Banzai, and would you recommend it?
I would recommend it. I'd be careful about who you recommend it to or who you watch it with. You know, just make sure your marriage is on a solid footing.
I didn't mess with your domestic tranquility, did I? Having you watch this film, did I?
If you could get me some domestic tranquility, that'd be a great place to start. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No, no. The word campy has come up a couple of times in the show. This movie is not campy. It's sincere. When I think campy, I think Batman and Robin. I think Joel Schumacher trying to make something that's big and colorful and flamboyant and purposely corny because that's all he thinks the material is. That's what he thinks of comic books. The people who made this movie, you know, I wouldn't change much except to maybe rein in a bit of the zaniness and tuck in some of those bedsheet corners narratively, like with the Ellen Barkin character. But I think to what you were saying, Mark, all the actors are committed. The story is, you know, bold and out there and cool and weird, but it's weird in a way that it's kind of like the infectious excitement of like all these ideas swimming around and wanting to give people the wider movie-going audience something they've never seen before. And in the sense that they responded by saying, no, thanks. That's where I think this movie is kind of ahead of its time. Because I think even with the tweaks that, Glenn, you're right, would have to be made to bring this into the mold of a Guardians, because they tend to balance the drama, you know, the feels with the comedy. This movie is completely absurd, but I think it would have worked better today. And I think it's just waiting out there to be reimagined. And I think even if people saw that this was a flop in '84, they should realize that there's enough of a cult following and enough people willing to be open to a movie like this to say, let's do a spinoff, let's do a remake or a sequel. I mean, if they did a sequel to this movie, they got Goldblum and Weller and who else back, they could totally do it. And it doesn't have to be a franchise. It could just be like a one-off thing. Hey, we're going to do this for the fans, and if it makes $1 or $1 billion, it's fine. I mean, if they can make Indiana Jones 5 with a half-awake Harrison Ford, they can do anything. I'm bringing it full circle for you, Mark.
I saw that. You brought it full circle. And yeah, it is right. It has enough of a following now. And you could easily, with the way the world was built and the way they built these characters, you could easily do a passing the torch movie or even episode of where, you know, you do the older Hong Kong Cavaliers and Buckaroo Banzai. They're older, they're their age now. They're kind of retired and out of that, but still the intelligent guys, and kind of a passing the torch to either their offspring type of deal or a new, another group or a group that was inspired by their original adventures. That you could easily do a thing along that.
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Jr.
Yeah,
No, you don't even need to do that. The opening scene, Banzai and the Cavaliers are testing out this new dimensional car or whatever. They go through this portal and they come out the other side back into our reality, but they're all like 22 years old.
There you go.
And the same people. It's like Doctor Who changing, regenerating.
Well, Jeff Goldblum, I think, does regenerate because he doesn't really look that much old.
No.
So yeah, Buckaroo Banzai is an interesting film. Don't let its budget fool you. It's got a cult following for a reason, and it's fun. I mean, if you like, as we mentioned tonight, those films like Guardians of the Galaxy and that, or want to see something that probably has served as a template for many bigger named and more successful sci-fi movies and writers and directors, there's a lot here to enjoy. It just stumbles a bit, and I think it came out just at a time that audiences aren't ready for something like that yet, but now we've accepted so much craziness and there's so much content and wild shows out there. I think it would do better now. And so if you like that sort of thing, folks, please check it out. If nothing else, for the cast, because of characters that they have, because it's what you said, Ian. And we've had this discussion before, and I'll wrap it up. I know we're going a little long, but there's some modern films that try to do camp, and some of them do it really well. But what makes films like, I think, Buckaroo Banzai get the cult following is that sincerity. They're making a film fully planning on making a franchise out of this. I mean, you can tell everybody, they're in this thinking they're going to be successful and they're going to plan already for the next film. So the sincerity and the honesty that's in their performances and what they're putting into this film is impressive in itself, I think.
Yeah.
And it, if nothing else, appreciate it for that. It's commitment to the gimmick, as we would say. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for listening to us talk about Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. It is I Need a Hero month. So it is I Need a Hero month here. No, I'd still like sorry, the Buckaroo Banzai theme. But yes, it is I Need a Hero month. So next week, I believe it is next week, it is Remo Williams. So or Remo's a week after. I forgot who we're doing next week, but I've got it up, folks. So look for some more fun and interesting films, I think, this month. Our Cannon Fodder episode is Superman 4. That'll be near the end of the month. That should be an interesting discussion. So this is where I give my wonderful crew members who are very patient with this mumbling host a chance to shill. So license to shill. Angelique, ladies first. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
You can find me on Facebook, and you can find me and Mark sometimes, and a bunch of other very talented folks over at monstersmadnessandmagic.com.
Yeah, I do have a couple episodes I'm working on for the Movie Man's Monster Movie Musings. So hopefully I'll get those done within the next week here, and you'll see some of those. So awesome. Should be fun. So, and BFD, you've got something to plug. I love your TikToks. Come on, man.
You can find me on TikTok. I'm the old guy on TikTok.
That was still
Games in a Bunker. That's where you'll find me pretty much anywhere, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. Games in a Bunker.
There you go, folks. You should check out his Niebold's Necessities. Very entertaining. Mm-hmm. And and gaming advice too for all you RPG tabletop gamers out there as well. Man is a wealth of knowledge that you should definitely listen in on, because it's
nerdcore.
Yeah. And Ian, license to shill, sir.
Oh, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com, probably /kicking the seat. And put out like 3 video review conversations a week. And starting tomorrow, which hopefully Mark will be able to join us, if not for the inaugural episode, then maybe jump on some future ones. We're going to be talking about Loki from Disney Plus. It's going to be Loki's midweek mischief. So that'll be fun. Come check it out, 9 p.m. Central. We're going to be talking spoilers, so watch Loki on Disney Plus, and then come hang out. It's always fun.
Yeah, they're very kind to allow me amongst. I'm a mouse among giants as far as the comic knowledge goes there. So I appreciate being on there. And yes, folks, I'm gonna plug it quick. We do have an AMA coming up in 1 month. At the time of this recording, in 1 month, I'm kind of working what I'm going to be doing. Not sure, but it all depends on who shows up. So please show up for it. There's a link on our Facebook page. There's a link on my Special Mark Productions page. It's everywhere. You probably don't want to be, but check it anyway. Right here, it'll be on to YouTube, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. July 9th is the anniversary where we hit official 15 years of the first time we posted on YouTube. And it just happens to be my birthday as well. So it'll be a lot of interesting fun. Tune in for that, folks. And now we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bleh.